Hey everyone, it's Miss Nina Monique, host of the Corporate Rebel podcast. So excited to be bringing back this podcast with two new co-hosts, Miss Terretta Lusk and Mr. Landon Waring. It's real conversation with real people. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the Corporate Rebel podcast. I am your host, Nina Monique, and I brought along two new hosts with me, Terretta Lusk and Landon Waring, and we are the Corporate Rebels. And we are going to have some fun on this podcast. I started this podcast, I believe it was a year ago, and I relocated, so I had to put a pause on it. But I'm back with my two new guests, my two new co-hosts, I'm sorry. And I love them very much. They are very insightful, very knowledgeable. They're fun, they're vibrant, and we just gonna have fun with this podcast, talking about things that we go through in corporate America and just talking about things that help us get through what we go through on a normal daily basis in life. So just be prepared for some fun topics and some fun conversation, and it's just going to be a blast. So today our guest is Miss Carmen Davis Dye, and we are going to have a very interesting, well-diverse conversation with her about corporate America, some of her experiences, and we just gonna have a good time. So let's get started. Landon, you go first.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be a part of this. I appreciate you, Nina, for reaching out and thinking of me to be a part of this podcast. Never really thought about doing a podcast, but I know that, the sense of humor and all of the good stuff that kind of comes along with being me will be something I look forward to pushing out for everybody. And I'm looking forward to it. So,
Oh yeah, let me tell you, everyone, you're gonna have a good time with Landon. Okay, he's fun and he's a troublemaker, but yet he's serious as well. And when we get to know Miss Terretta Lusk, you're gonna love her also because she's a visionary. She's a great woman at heart, and she's all about helping people, inspiring people, and just helping people evolve and grow into their better selves. So I'm looking forward to everyone just getting to know the people here on the screen because I love them very much. So, Miss Terretta, tell everyone a little bit about you.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Terretta Lusk, better known as Miss T. That's how I am affectionately known. I'm looking forward to some of the great topics that we're going to be covering in the Corporate Rebel, the different guests. It will be fun, it will be insightful, but I want you to be able to listen to this podcast and be able to take away something that will help you throughout your day as you navigate the choppy waters of the corporate America structure. Looking forward to having a great time.
Yes. Miss Carmen, my queen, Miss Carmen, I love her very much. Tell everyone a little bit about you. Yes.
Yes, good afternoon, Nina. Good afternoon, Landon. Good afternoon, Miss T. I am honored and in awe of all of you. And I feel like if it were not for you, three people, I'd have a hard time today. So let me just be clear and say that. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. A little bit about me. I'm a Harlem girl from the Harlem world. Trust and believe. Born and raised. Some people call me a born Jamaican because I have parents that are from the island of Jamaica. But at the end of the day, I paved my way. I found my way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I've been holding it down for a long time. We're not going to say how long, but it's a long time. So that's me, and better known as Miss C Double D.
I like that, C double D. So, Miss Terretta, I'm going to have you lead the conversation, the interview. If you have questions to start, let's get started on the interview.
Okay, Miss Nina. You said nothing but a word. Miss Carmen Dye, I know as being a Black woman in corporate America, my first question to you would be, not telling your age because you are as youthful as you look. But I would want to kind of tap into growing up in the 60s and 70s, the racial unrest and things that you were probably more aware of. What is the difference in what you see from that time period to this one? Is there a difference as you navigate the waters in corporate America, as how we're seen? What is it that is different from that time in the 60s and the 70s compared to the 2000s, if any?
So, if I understand your question correctly, Terretta, you're specifically looking at a time in the 60s and the 70s where people started to become empowered. People of color started to become empowered. Um, Specifically for me, growing up in New York City, you know, in high school, which would be the 60s, there was a new kind of self-awareness, your Blackness started to come forward. And for me, having gone to an all-white girls' academy, that was nothing out of the ordinary for me because that's what I was accustomed to. It wasn't until in the 70s when I graduated and went to HBCU, Howard University, that it again became more to the forefront. You started seeing clearly the lines of demarcation just breaking little by little. Student unrest and the way people were reclaiming their identity, if you will. You're on campus and people are wearing afros, wearing their hair natural, and just the whole affectation of their presence, their being. And being on a campus like Howard, it came full force. So for me, nothing like it is today. We're in a different place today. Definitely different. But I think if it were not for that time, we could not have been in this moment at this time. That can answer your question, so to speak.
Absolutely, Miss Carmen. I know I wasn't really dead on with the question, but you got to what I was trying to get to, the error of time. Okay. You talked about, it came full circle for you.
Yeah.
And I see that we're going full circle again in 2022.
Yeah.
So I know Landon needs to jump in here because he looks like he has something to say.
You don't know my life.
Troublemaking Landon.
No, you actually said something, Carmen, that kind of triggered a question for me. And that was at a certain point in time, you started seeing people wear their hair more naturally. Now, over the past 10 years, I've only had one look that I'm able to pull off. So, but my question to you is, what made you decide to stay with the cut that you have now? And were there any adverse effects to being in corporate America?
So let me be clear about the haircut. It is one thing to be in corporate America in, let's say, the 80s and the 90s. I didn't get to let me back up. At Howard was the very first time I shaved my head because that was a look. It was something that was so unique and different. I was looking at 1971. I was looking at the New York Times fashion section, and the front page was a Black woman with her head shaved, and a caption said, "A sign of things to come." And I immediately looked at my boyfriend at the time and said, I want my hair cut just like that. So that was how I transitioned into this look during my college years. However, when it came time to graduate and get a real job, go and get a real job, going into corporate America, this was not the look that was going to be well accepted. And I'm clear. And there's a certain demeanor and a posture, and impressions are everything. And when you, as a Black woman, Black man, when you're going into an interview, there's a presence that you set when you walk through the door. For me, I had to conform, so to speak. And when I did, it wasn't so much of a problem, but I missed the look. But I knew I had to adapt. But what I learned later on in the 21st century is once I got my foot through the door and once I handled the business for the powers that be, then I was able to dictate to how I would look, how I would carry myself, because I was already proving to the masses who I am. And it was one day I came in with this one hair, and the next day I came in with this hair with some color. So that started the conversation for me.
Right. And I say that because that kind of ties into the initial question that Terretta asked as far as how things were then versus how they are now. And I've seen videos on social media where there's a little kid with dreads who was wrestling and they wouldn't let him compete unless he cut his dreads off. Or you have certain states that make it a law to where you can't wear your hair how it naturally grows out of your head. And at some point, that is them making a determination of how well you can actually do your job, which to me, still in 2022, makes no sense.
Well, you know what, Landon, let me just say something about that. As recent as last week, the Crown Act finally has been passed and it is now law. And let me correct you on one other thing. Being a born Jamaican, the term dreadlocks is the official term for the hair, the natural hair as it grows and it locks. But rather than say dreads or dreadlocks, you refer to it as your locks because your hair is locking.
Got it.
When we say dread, it's as if you're being discouraged or denigrated. When you say locks, we're locking our hair. So we never want to denigrate. We never want to disempower anyone. And when we refer to someone, we refer to their hair as their locks. This is their crown and their glory. And therein lies why the Crown Act was initiated. Okay.
Well, clearly, I don't know anything about hair considering what I have going on. So I'm okay with you giving me dropping knowledge on that case. So I appreciate that, Miss Carmen.
You're quite welcome, my dear. You and I can kind of sort of, because I've had my shit saved.
You have a choice, though. I don't have a choice.
All day, every day. All day, every day. Well, Landon, now, if you really wanted to.
No.
You said a word, Miss Carmen, that I want to kind of, I'm sorry, Landon. But she said a word. You said a word, Miss Carmen, that I think we need to dive into a little bit more. And the word was conformity. Okay. And I don't know for you, But my rebel came out at a very young age. Yes, I was in corporate America and they told me how I should look. But there was parts of me that spoke my own language, rather it was through my hair, rather it was through the suits I wore. Whatever it was, I found my own way to put my own spin on it because I just could not have the thought process. Not only are you dictating to me how much money I'm going to be making, but you also trying to dictate to me what I should look like just to come to work in your corporation. My question to you is, what would be your advice to any young person who may not have had that upbringing on how to carry yourself, especially when you're in corporate America and you go into that setting and you're being told not to be yourself? What advice would you give to that person going through the journey you have already embarked on?
See, in the 20th century, it was about conforming. And as we transition decade to decade, now we're assimilating. Today, in the 21st century, we just show up and bring our best selves to the table. You know, before we were waiting to be invited to the table. And now we just show up to the table. We advocate for ourselves. And one thing I will say early on, my goddaughter, since I don't have any biological children, my goddaughter, during the Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, I told her mom, I said, I'd like for her to come to my office and I want her to be able to be in this environment that I was in. Okay. And lo and behold, because she knew who I was, when that baby came to the door of my office on that day, she had on a navy blue blazer, a white blouse, khaki skirt, stockings, and pumps. And she was just 13 years old at the time. No one had to tell her how to show up. And one of my staff at the time had her daughter in the office. Her daughter came in jeans and a sweatshirt. So I make that parallel by saying is when you are leading by example and the people that see you, whatever that example is how it resonates in your environment. And that baby girl, all those years ago, she made me so proud. And she was in my office. She ended up working for an advisor, stuffing envelopes. And the advisor came to my office later on, gave me an envelope and said, here, you need to give this to your goddaughter. I liked how she carried herself. And it was a crisp, brand new $50 bill in an envelope with her name on it because of how she showed up. That was an extension of me. That was a reflection of me. I was proud. And to this day, this young lady is a mommy mogul and she has her own business and she's doing exceptionally well. And she too went to an HBCU, but she went to the other HU, Hampton University.
Landon or Nina, or any questions or any feedback you want to give regarding this question?
Well, I do want to say I know where Carmen is coming from because for me, when I stepped into corporate America, I was like 18 years old. And when I got in, I was like, I was happy because I said, I'm gonna make the most of this. I want to be like my mother, my grandmother, and my uncle. They, put a lot of hard work into getting up every day, going to work, getting dressed. My uncle was working in New York, and that was my role model when he would put on his suits and walk out the house with his briefcase. And he worked in New York, and he worked for, a big financial firm. And he would come home and tell me stories. And I would just sit there like, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to get up in the morning, get dressed like him. And I remember when he brought me to the car dealership. And he brought me to the car dealership, and I watched him get his first car. And he was like, when you work hard and you save money and you do what you have to do and you don't bother nobody, you just do you. This is what you can accomplish. So that was my inspiration for getting into corporate America. But the thing is, he didn't really explain to me what I had to endure once I got in, which is, like Carmen said, you have to conform. You have to show up. And I think for people of color, you have to show up even more than someone else because they have a certain way of looking at us. So, I wasn't prepared for that when I got into corporate America. And once I got into banking, it was something else completely different, you know. Um, but as time went on and I understood how racism lies in corporate America, I was like, okay, this is something that's never going to go away. Either I'm going to always get upset about things, or I'm going to tell someone when they do something to me that I don't like how I feel about it. I'm going to address it because it's never going to change. But I can't stop living my life and crawl into a hole every time someone tries to disrespect me or make me feel less than, because I know I'm more than what they see. And I can't help how other people are raised. So it is a challenge being in corporate America, right down to how you wear your hair. That was one of the topics that you just talked about, how you wear your hair. And you see, like Landon said, on social media, all these stories of how you're judged just because of the locks or the short haircut. And how you're denied an opportunity to work or to walk into an establishment. And it's ridiculous to me. And I'm always asking, like, how do you wake up in the morning with these little stupid things in your mind to try and stop someone else from being successful? But like I said, I just had to learn how to keep pushing, because that's never going to change. And to give advice to someone coming in young into corporate America, find you a Terretta, a Landon, and a Carmen, a Anthony Lee, and have your people with you to support you, because it's really no joke out here, especially now with everything going on, and you do need that support in corporate America. So that's all I really want to say about that.
I just wanted to add something else to Nina.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I know, that when I made the conscious choice to cut my hair, I've been in this environment on Wall Street, and being in California with the time frame, you have to be at work 5:35, 6 o'clock in the morning. So for me, it was a no-brainer to cut my hair and keep it simple. I don't have to spend a whole lot of time on grooming myself. I put more emphasis on the rest of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've always taken pride in. I'm a firm believer that when you dress well, when you are impeccable in your taste, when everything from your makeup to how you wear your hair. When people saw me coming, they would be like, damn, who is she? And at the end of the day, it was like the hair was part of the attire. And that's how I've always come. And it would seem like, as well as I would be groomed, as well groomed as I was, it could either work for me or against me. It didn't really matter, because at the end of the day, I had as many people who were like in awe of my being and demeanor. And then you have those people who are considered haters, who are envious. Okay. I welcomed it all, because for me, what I would say to people, bring your best self to the table at all times. You're going to get the naysayers, but you're also going to have the people who love you, who truly admire you. And even those of them who admire you, but they do it on the QT, on the down low. They don't want to say it, but they do. They admire you. And especially when you come to their aid or their rescue, when you do a job that is above and beyond the call of duty, that's what they remember. And that's what I bring to the table, because when I'm feeling good about myself, I'm looking good, I'm feeling good, I do my best work. And you know what? The one thing they can never say about Miss C Double D is that she's always doing her best work. Just saying.
So I have a question for you then, Carmen. With knowing that there is kind of like adverse reactions to the color of your skin, and trying to correlate that with the type of work that you can do, to where you have to be extraordinary to match somebody else's mediocre or less than. How does that play into your mental health on a day-to-day basis, knowing that you have to be here when everybody else's acceptance level is here?
I know, Landon, I just don't like you right about now, because that was the next question. I just had to say that. I'm sorry, wonderful people. Go ahead.
You're welcome.
Landon, I was prepared early on. I went, as I said, for 12 years, I'd gone to private schools. And for 12 years, I have been always that chocolate chip in the cookie dough, as I call it. I'm always the representative, okay? With that said, I learned at an early age what it looked like to excel and not just be mediocre. Because someone else is mediocre, people are going to say, oh, that's okay. But when they look at me, my mediocre will not cut it. As I said, I have parents of Jamaican descent. They came from Jamaica. There were rules. My job was to get my education. My job was to do any and everything and carry myself in a way that would make my family proud. With that kind of rigorous upbringing, it was quite simple to go into that environment. However, not everybody has that same basis. But what I will say is that we must find and do things to empower ourselves. We must learn how to love ourselves. We must learn how to dig deep and bring out what allows you joy. When you find joy in your own space, in your own sense of who you are, it will allow you to kind of sort of put up with the day-to-day crazy. And it doesn't hurt to have a couple of people like you folk on your board of directors. Y'all are part of my board of directors. So everybody needs to have a board of directors, that person that they can go to, that person they can vent with, Because when you have that person you can go to, talk to, vent with, someone that can pull you back to center, it makes a big difference. Me personally, I've learned over the years what stress looks like. It's also cost me to an extent in terms of my ability to not have kids, But at the end of the day, once I came to that reality in my life, I found the joy in being a mother to other people's children. I have outlets that I have for myself that allows me to rejuvenate, if you will. So I would just say, enjoy the things that you can enjoy. Make the most of your life. Look at yourself and find your joy. Look at what it is around you. Without gratitude, I'm a firm believer of gratitude. I'm a firm believer of gratitude. I'm a firm believer of valuing people in my life. Just those small things in and of itself will allow you to get through a day of stress and strife. And believe me, on the days that I feel like I'm drowning, I pick up the phone and I call somebody. Right, Miss T?
Absolutely, Miss Carmen. And I had to reach out to Nina this week because I was about to go smooth to the left. But we do have people in place that help move us and compels us forward opposed to backwards, which brings me to my next question. I know that we stand on the backs of others, on their shoulders rather. And now that we're in 2022, what have you learned from standing on the shoulders of others? How are you making an impact in the life of those that are, our youth moving forward? How do you see yourself making an impact on their life so that they can carry the baton forward and stand on our shoulders?
Wow, Miss T, you are bringing the questions today.
I have the right wig on, girl. I have the right wig on.
Yeah, me too.
You are so crazy. As long as I can remember, and I would like to say for the last 30 plus 30 years, 3 decades, if you will, I have found myself in the mentoring of young women in particular. I advocate for youth at large, but I do belong to an organization where it allows for me to really get in with the young women. And having been a young woman at one point in time in my life, I remember the people that afforded me that same grace, that afforded me the opportunities, if you will, just to step up to the next level, whether it was work related or not. Today it's called networking or whatever. But at the end of the day, I advocate for young women, and particularly young women who are disenfranchised and don't have the same levels of opportunities, as middle class young folk. Okay. I gear myself towards the more disenfranchised. And I like to think that when I take them under my wing and share with them, my struggles, and I speak straight, I keep it real. I give them the skinny, and I meet them where they are. You can't talk over people's heads. You have to meet young people where they are. And I feel that in my doing that, not only do I get to hear them, but they keep me on track in terms of being in this moment at this time. This is 21st century. We need to be in the moment. Yes, it's nice to reflect and talk about, your history, or should I say herstory. But for me, it's a dialogue that allows me to hand the baton to the next one, and they get to hand it on down the road. So that transition that takes place generation to generation, it's an obligation as to who you are as a human being to reach back and bring this person forward. It's an obligation, especially in our culture. We need to do that. And that's what Bob Smith did when he went to Morehouse and he paid for 400 young Black men for their education so they can start out on a good footing. I wish I had that kind of money. I'd have been at Spelman in a heartbeat, right across the street, giving all them young women the same benefit. That's what I would do.
It's really a blessing to have people that can kind of do that for you. And speaking from experience, maybe not with college and being able to push in that direction, but in the current workplace that I'm in now, I was basically given an opportunity because of my mindset and how I worked on a basketball court, as far as being a team member and a leader and a good communicator and stuff like that. So now, with my current manager and the team that, he's currently building out, you see that you get that opportunity, not for what you look like, but you get that opportunity for what you bring to the table and what type of asset and value that you can actually be. And you start to work with like-minded people where at the end of the day, it's like, okay, this needs to be done. Let's just get it done. I'm going to teach you how to get it done. So whether you stay here or you utilize these skills somewhere else, you're still adding tools to your tool bag so that you can be a better version of you. And for me, a lot of times we sit in meetings throughout the day, and we're talking about work, but even having that normal conversation of how's your wife doing? How are your kids doing? Like that kind of breaks it up and makes it, I guess, for lack of better terms, a little bit more palatable throughout the day when you're dealing with the crazy, and just knowing that you have people in your support system that have your back to where they're sharpening you to be a better technician for what you're doing in the company that you work for. But also for me, you have people that are teaching you how to be a better man, a better father, a better husband, a better role model, even for the people and your peers and stuff like that. So, I think we definitely need more people in the world that are like, okay, I've made it, I'm wealthy. Let me go and help out, here, so that they can have an equal opportunity or a similar opportunity to what I had. Because, if you really think about it, a lot of stuff that was invented were really invented by people you really would look at and be like, you didn't invent that. You didn't do that. So to me, it's like you just give people the opportunity and see what they're made of, and you really might be surprised. Just don't sit back and judge them based on what they look like or what their hair looks like or what they're wearing on that specific day. Because ultimately, you don't know what somebody's going through. You don't know if they just had, a child that's sick or a friend that just passed away. And, it comes with you having that understanding of, this is my obligation, this is my job as a human being, to treat you with respect, to treat you as a human being, and see how that pays forward as we go along in life, to our children, to our friends, to our peers, and so on and so forth. So, I know I sound like I'm kind of ending this stuff like here, but that's just kind of where I'm coming from right now.
You know what, Landon? I'm so glad you said what you said, because I can remember when I first met you, and I was in the office and I needed help getting set up. And it was my first time ever seeing you. Didn't know who you were. I just knew you were from IT. But you know what? You were on your way to do something, but you took the time to help me in my situation. And I never forgot that. That made an impression on me from day one. And so here we are, years later. That many years? Wow.
4 years in January.
And you know what? I feel like, well, see, you and I must have known each other in another lifetime for sure. I'm just going to say that and keep it, I'm sticking to that. But my point is, you have such a tremendous gift, as we all do here on the screen. Each one of us has a gift. And you know what? That gift is a present for other people. For other people. For real. The gifts that we have, that we share with others, that becomes a present for them. And they, in turn, if they're paying attention, they too will share their gifts. And that's how it should be. We should recognize and value one another as human beings. We're colleagues, but we're human beings first. And because we're human beings, that allows us to become true allies. And particularly when you're talking about people of color, because no one can know what we go through on a day-to-day basis when we're going into our job. The moment you walk into the building, the moment you get on the elevator, you look in that mirror sideways, making sure no food in my teeth, my hair is combed, my slip is not showing when we used to wear slips. We don't wear slips anymore. Anyway, just saying, but you know what I'm saying. That was a big thing. People's slips used to be showing sometimes. People walked through the door, they wore a slip, undergarment, petticoat, whatever. But all jokes aside, seriously, we have to put on that armor as Black people so that when we come through the door, we're armed to the tooth. So that whatever people are going to throw at us today, it's like, hit me with your best shot, if you dare. And see, the one thing I know that has allowed me to withstand the test of time in corporate America, I took such pride and continue to take pride in what I do. And I continue to garner the relationships that I do, such that when someone comes through the door and they decide that they're going to take a pot shot at me or they're going to intimidate me, I make sure I give them all the courtesy and respect that there is. I put it on in such a way they will never, ever be able to say as poorly as they treated me that I've ever disrespected them. I'll respect them because they're a human being. Doesn't matter whether I like you or not. I will respect your life. And you can go about and you can disrespect me if you choose to. But every time someone has chosen to disrespect me, karma is a bitch. You reap what you sow. And all I do is sit back and wait. And when it's time, I'm absolved of any wrongdoing whatsoever because I did nothing. All I did was give you respect. you're the one who shot yourself in the foot. That's my story. And like Miss T says, I'm sticking to it.
Miss Nina, you up next, Mama. We got to hear your viewpoint of what Miss Carmen done said. I can speak. Yeah.
I agree with everything Carmen said, just from experience. I just experienced so much, and you just learn how to, I guess, maneuver around it. You just I just been through so much, and like Carmen said, at times you just have to sit back and let people be people. I personally feel I wasn't put on this earth to chastise people, to punish people, to judge people, to do any of that, because I just feel I wasn't put on this earth to do that. There's always someone out there who feel they can, and those are the people that's gonna handle those individuals. Like Carmen said, I sit back, I have my popcorn, and I'm like, ooh, you should have known that was coming from what. So I just learned how to fall back on doing certain things. Everything don't need a reaction, because what people do is gonna come back to them somehow. And I just go on about my business. Corporate America is definitely something. When you walk in, you do have to be on point. You have to be ready. You do have to wear your suit of armor. And sometimes when I was younger and I didn't understand, I'd be like, why do I have to walk around like that? Why do I have to walk around feeling like I have to have my fist up and ready to fight when somebody say something to me? And when my mother and uncle had to talk with me, I was like, okay, I get it. So I just learned how to maneuver around certain things. And like I said, I think my outlook has become a little bit better, especially because I've met you guys. Like, you guys played a major part in my life in just a few months. So like I said, everyone needs a Terretta, Landon, and Carmen. And I'm gonna just leave it there.
And they can have us for the right fee, girl. For the right fee, yes.
I don't know if they can afford me.
I know that. But we can throw you out there and just see how much we can get, okay?
Yeah.
If it's enough to get me a good wig so I can look like Miss Nina, then we on the right track. I'm just saying.
You know what?
I'm going to end this question now.
Oh,
this
go ahead.
this hair is hot though. It's hot. I'm trying not to sweat on camera. So
Yeah, because Landon will get you. We need to talk about Landon in his entirety on another upcoming show. But I'm quite sure the people gonna get to know who Landon is. Okay.
Okay.
And this question I'm posing to all three of you.
Okay.
Okay. And even though Landon, he'll be creative enough to come up with an answer for this, because he's one of the younger generations. Well, Nina is too. Well, hell, all of us is. Let me stop putting the business out there. But here it is. What would be your advice to your younger self in regards to who you are? Because we talk about corporate America and how they make us feel, right? How do you see you? Because you've grown, right? So if you were to have a talk with your younger self, what advice would you give the younger version of you?
I can start. Honestly, I would probably say, one, go to school, get an education or degree or certification in the current field that I'm in now, because I see the different avenues of where you can go and how beneficial it can be, especially financially, to kind of learn what I'm currently learning now. I would say value the time that you have with yourself and your loved ones, because we hear all the phrases and we know all the scriptures, and for me it hasn't hit me as hard until this past year with losing my sister and losing my mom. And you lay in bed at night and you're kind of like, I wish I can just call just to hear your voice. You ain't even got to talk about anything. I wish I can just drive down the road and just give you a hug. So to me, it would be cherishing the moments that you have when those people are there, and making the most of whatever opportunity that you are given at that time. Who's next?
Okay, I guess I'll go. I have to agree with Landon on that. My grandmother is ill, and I wish that I would have taken more time to spend with her when I was little, to tell her I love her, to tell her thank you for everything. I wish that she could see everything that I'm doing now, because I know she would be very proud of me. Because I know she would be very proud of me. She taught me about entrepreneurship. She taught me about going after the things that I want and not being afraid to fall down and get back up. She's the one who also taught me, when I'm sitting in front of people, you always have yourself together. She owned her own business, and she would bring me everywhere with her. The attorney office, the municipal building, to get the license for things. And I was little and I wanted to stay home and watch cartoons all day, but she pulled me with her. And looking back now, I'm like, man, I wish I would have just taken more time to learn from her and to ask her more questions. Um, I can sit in a comfortable space and say that I've been blessed with a wonderful family that supported me. And just from that lesson of not being able to tell my grandmother how I feel now, I try to tell that to my mother and my uncle and my cousins all the time. Like the constant phone calls with my mom, 2 hours of talking on the phone and then 2 hours of FaceTime every night or every other night. And a couple of nights ago, my mother was like, I talk to you more now that you're in LA than you was actually here when you was here. So that time, is valuable to me. When I go to bed at night, I don't know if I'm going to wake up and see them again. And to myself, what I would say to my younger self is, you are beautiful, you're gifted, you have a lot to offer everyone. And don't be afraid to go after the things that you see for yourself. When I was younger, I didn't do a lot of things that I wanted to do because I didn't think I was valuable enough to do it. So that would be what I would say to my younger self.
Miss Carmen?
It's Carmen in her feelings right now.
Yeah, I am. As I sat and I listened to both you, Nina and Landon, and I'm hearing what you guys are saying. And I grew up at a different time, different era, if you will. And as far back as the age of 3, I've had to advocate for myself. And I can remember that very vividly. Um, there was always a lot of trauma that took place around me, that I happened to witness trauma within my family and outside of my family. So I feel like by the time I was able to be potty trained and walking and talking, I had to hit the ground running. And I felt like that. What I would tell my younger self is, Carmen, when you're standing amongst your peers, you may be the chocolate chip in the cookie dough. But remember, without that chocolate chip, the cookie don't taste good. And I say that to myself now, and that's why I would say it to my younger self, because when you grow up and you look like me, especially when I went to Howard, I'd never seen such a rainbow coalition of Black folks in my entire life. And the women that were looking like me didn't always get that top tier, or that out of that first, that date. You're living in the dorm, all these girls were going out with these fabulous guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, when is it going to be my turn? I mean, I was 95 pounds dripping wet. Maybe I didn't have enough badonkadonk, but I got some today. But I just say that to say that it's not about your surface or superficial. I don't want to be superficial, because beauty is skin deep. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn that. That was a serious lesson in life to learn.
Yep.
You're as beautiful on the outside as you are on the inside. Mm-hmm. And when the day came that I owned my beauty, was when I saw it transform in my environment. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to say previously real quick is that when I first came into this industry, 2 white men were responsible for me being here today. They respected my opinions. They valued me as a human being. And because of those 2 men is how I have been able to further my career along, if you will. And, at the end of the day, there are people in this world who don't look like you, that when they see you as a human being, and when they truly value you, it empowers you further. So you want to do your best. You want to bring your best. You want to bring your A game every single time. And those 2 men, rest their souls. If it were not for them, I couldn't even be here to have this conversation. So I want to thank them very much. Gratitude first, last, and always is what I would remind my younger self.
Well, on that note, I can't think of a better note to go out on. As for me, I'm just grateful that I'm getting ready to eat because I'm hungry. Oh, yeah, you guys got to get used to the funnies because there's no whole bar with us. But, I'm sitting up here and my Asian is coming out in my eyes, see? So that lets me know that I'm hungry. So, Miss Nina Monique, I'm going to go off the mic right now and try to maintain my, my isness right up in here because my eyes are really kind of going there. And that's only because I was hungry. But this has been a great conversation, and I am looking so forward to many more. Yes. Carmen, thank you.
Yes,
we will be bringing you back quite a few times because you have an insight and a wisdom that we all need.
You know what? I'm really grateful to be here, and I think that this was the opportune time for me to be here, given the news I've just had. My phone has been buzzing off the hook. People are calling me, but I think that this is what I really need, because I don't want to be, my friend would not want me to have an out-of-body experience. He would want me to do my best and continue moving forward, because that's what we do. HU you know, that's what we always would say to each other. And that's what I can hear him saying in my being, in my space. So thank you so much for doing this. And I'll be looking to see the replay.
Definitely.
Flaws and all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. And this has been a very fun opportunity to just talk and chat and be corporate rebels. That's what we are. Good corporate rebels. Like oh gosh, what's his name? I can't believe I can't remember.
John Lewis.
John Lewis.
Yes. Good trouble. We feel
Yes.
it.
Rest in peace to John Lewis.
You
Yes.
must be hungry too, huh?
Yeah, I am. I'm disappointed I couldn't remember his name, but yes, John Lewis. Rest in peace to him. We all about good trouble. And we're gonna sign off now. We're looking forward to the next episode of the Corporate Rebel Podcast. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Take care. 3 queens and a king. Mwah.